What's up, family? King Isom in the building. I want to start providing some commentary on some different topics using different videos from different genres, if you will, of the media. And I want to start with a story that's been making its rounds as of late as to the suspension of the head coach for the Boston Celtics, a Mr. I believe it's pronounced Ime Udoka. He was suspended for what it appears to be a year, that may be indefinite, for a consensual sexual relationship he had with another member of the Boston Celtics organization. And I want to highlight some different points from the interaction as it relates to different approaches and treatments of these issues. And with that being said, let's go ahead and let these people begin to talk, and I'll chime in with my commentary. Let's get it.
There's no NDA involved. You just sat up there and basically told the world, he's ours, but we ain't going to use him.
Yeah. And they didn't give parameters of what it would take to reinstate
They gave no parameters of what it would take for reinstatement. They didn't specify what punishment they gave him beyond suspending him for the year. Is he getting his salary for this upcoming season? Has it been cut in half? I told he's only getting about 50% of it. Has that been cut in half?
Characterized as a significant financial penalty.
So you've got that going on. And I'm going to say this again.
Now, this is Stephen A. Smith's first point. They're talking about his main point appears to be the handling of this situation by the Boston Celtics as an organization. Basically, he's saying it's messy and was not handled well at all. But this next point, within the confines of his overall point, the way the Celtics organization handled all of this is going to be what draws the ire of many who may be listening in general, but primarily the other commentator who's soon to enter the fray. Let's listen to him and the point he makes here, his second point.
It said in the numerous news reports, it was a consensual relationship that violated organizational policy.
Keep that in mind. This is basically Mr. Udoka had sex with somebody in the organization, and it was consensual. We're not talking about the R word. We're not talking about domestic violence or any of that from what we've been told thus far. This was a consensual workplace relationship, which is not appropriate, folks. You want to stay away from that at all costs. But we're not talking about anything illegal. This is a company policy issue, not a legal issue, at least from what we've been told thus far. And Stephen A. Smith is getting ready to address that. If it is indeed a consensual workplace relationship, then the question needs to be asked. Take it away, Mr. Smith.
So only he is in violation of the company policy? The woman who elected to have a consensual relationship with him is not in violation?
Straightforward. You know what? Mr. Smith has the con. Keep talking, brother.
He gets to get mentioned and put on Front Street. We don't know who she is.
That's a problem right there. That's a problem right there. You're doing well, sir. Continue.
What about the other women within the Celtics organization who have been victimized because wrong assumptions have been made by their involvement? If you knew exactly who it was, that would alleviate the concerns of all the other women who have had their names paraded out into the streets.
I like the point he makes there. And he is being consistent with his original overarching concern. You, Boston Celtics organization, you did a messy job with this. And because of your messy handling of what could have very well been taken care of internally, you're the root cause of all the fallout, not all, but much of the fallout coming from it. It's your handling. And I like how Stephen A. Smith connects these things together, because a lot of the public outcry, you'll hear it later from Mr. Stevens, the president of the organization, is how the women who were not involved in the encounter have been unfairly attacked. And Stephen A. Smith is like, well, you know what? That could have been alleviated. Matter of fact, definitely mitigated had you just come out and been fair in your reporting. If you're going to say who did it, who he was, say who she is, and that eliminates the speculation that is bound to come in these types of situations. Excellent point, sir.
What about them? You ain't thinking about that. So here we are. We're throwing him out to pasture. And again, Ime Udoka cannot be defended. His actions are his actions. Nobody fights for black coaches more than me. But I am telling you, a firing would have been warranted. Or you keep him. But to keep him, yet suspend him. By the way, not just suspend him, but for the suspension to be indefinite.
It's almost works like a lame duck status.
That's what you did. You ruined his career for the next few years.
And that's my point right there. I'm not going to get into whether or not the brother should have been suspended. From what I can see, I don't see why. He should have been reprimanded and take care of that in-house. But again, I'm not going there. That's not my main point. But you have basically maligned and ruined this man's career. Did he have something to do with it? Yes, he did. But again, just keep that in mind. Now, we're going to begin to segue, and I'm going to begin to get into the meat of what I want to bring out from this particular segment specifically. Let's keep going.
He did it.
I think we have NBA reporter and host of NBA Today, our friend Malika Andrews. Malika, do you have us?
Now, before Malika, before Miss Andrews comes on, for those who may not know, I'm sure many of you do, Mr. Stephen A. Smith is the host of the show First Take. And I may have mentioned this earlier, well known, over 25 years in the industry, making probably almost 10 million or more a year. This guy is well known. He is established. He's certified. Malika Andrews, I never heard of her until I got this clip in my feed. So you have a woman coming on to another man's show that makes her a guest. Though they may work for the same company, this is Stephen A. Smith's show. And I want you to watch the way she comes in. And I want you to look at what she comes in for. And I'm going to talk about the why of her way and her what. Let's look at that. Miss Andrews, you have the floor as a guest on First Take.
I've got you, Molly. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being with us. And obviously you had the statement from Udoka that was given to you. What's your reaction now after hearing the press conference?
Well, Molly, thank you. If I could first start with this. Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop. What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all of the information here. And it was frustrating to me that the Celtics declined to elaborate or to give more specifics about what exactly the rule breaking was that led us to this point. So that I just want to get that out of the way first. If I could first
let me chime in here. And I'm going to let her speak again. But I want to now begin to hone in to the primary members of my own audience here. I'm speaking to, again, King Isom is at your service. I'm ready to teach. And Prince Isom is in your seat, ready to learn. My primary audience members in this segment, and unless I say otherwise, is to men, specifically to so-called black men in America, who are without a doubt, many of you brothers, the most miseducated, misinformed, misguided, oft neglected, and the biggest point of attack and contention in the nation. I'm also speaking, that's my specific audience, to so-called black men. I want to also speak to men in general. Hear me, beloved. This, and again, when I speak to Miss Andrews here, I don't know who she is. I'm not trying to attack her personally. I'm going to attack this public archetype that she represents. Notice the tenor and tone as she comes on to another man's show and has the nerve to tell Stephen A. Smith to stop. And this is not about this, and it's not about that. It's about this. Let me help you, brothers, understand something here. And I like how Stephen A. Smith responds. I want to use him as a teaching tool to how to deal with these, what I call TMWs, typical modern women, who many of them are uncouth in their approach, and they seem to think that they are on par with everyone else in the room simply because they are in the room. With that said, listen to this woman again, and I have some questions to ask of you in response to her commentary. Let's listen.
Start with this. Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop. What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all of the information here, and it was frustrating to me that the Celtics declined to elaborate or to give more specifics about what exactly.
Now, she says it's frustrating. I wanted to stop there to get the picture of Brother Udoka in the frame, because her frustration is that this, and I'm just, again, these are my perspectives, my inferences based on what I can hear. Her frustration is that the Celtics organization did not give more information on him. Stephen A. Smith, it's not about pointing the finger to her. How dare you say that she should be held accountable and her name should put out there? No, my point of contention is, why didn't the Celtics organization bring out more information on him? You see, Mr. Udoka in this particular picture, he's of course coaching, but he is ironically pointing the finger. And what she seems to be saying is, I want to know, why didn't they bring out more information on him? Don't you talk about the woman. Why didn't they bring, matter of fact, stop. It's not about that. Lord, help your children. Let her talk.
Exactly the rule breaking was that led us to this point.
What did he do? What's the rule breaking? Now, if she does not mean that, because I could be wrong, kings are known to be wrong from time to time. She could be saying that, why aren't they bringing out more information about both and the whole situation? But if she is saying that, then what is her point of contention with Stephen A. Smith, who has said the exact same thing? That's why I am inferring that she is saying, I want you to bring out more dirt about him, not about her. Because if she is saying bring out more information about both, then she had no reason to say it's not about finger pointing. She's contradicting herself, which many TMWs, typical modern women, are known to do when they have an underlying agenda. We're going to talk about that.
To that, I just want to get that out of the way first. But to answer your question, Molly, I think what stood out to me.
Now, Stephen A. Smith, who I'm sure he is seething right now. But hear me, brothers. This is what I want to do in terms of teaching from these moments. He did not get emotional, Stephen A. Smith, at the disrespect and disregard that this guest on his show has displayed. He said, I'll let you speak, but go on. Meaning, put a pin in that. I'll listen to you, and then I will address you when you're done. Keep that in mind.
I think what stood out to me is that Brad Stevens, he was upset. That's what stood out to me about what he termed rampant Twitter BS is the word that he used, that women were unfairly dragged into this within the Celtics organization. You could see that Brad Stevens was visibly upset about this. And I also found that to be gross and unnecessary.
Now, look at her point of contention. She said, what stood out to me. And somebody not going to like this, but listen, I don't give a damn. That's from the bottom of my heart. King Isom is at your service, ready to teach. And I'm not here to cater to anybody's emotions. I'm here to do just what this king is sent to do. Teach. She says, what stood out to me? What stood out to her was her. Her meaning the image she represents. Her. I like the fact that Brad Stevens, the president of the organization, was upset about how I meaning who she represents, the woman, was treated. That's what stood out to me, that he was upset about the women and their gross treatment. That's what stood out to me. That's what I'm happy about. And listen to me. That's what I want all you men to do in your response. I want you to be upset at this gross maligning of women. I want you to make sure that it's about us. That's the message there. I want you to be upset like Brad Stevens was upset. I want you to be focused on the women. I want you to be upset like him. That's what stood out to me. Come on, sister, keep talking.
That folks were bringing in the names and the images of women that is just not a fact. That was purely speculation. And so to me, that is what stood out. But
she says, I like the fact that he was upset, and you men should be upset as well. And Stephen A. Smith made the exact same point earlier. Not about being upset. That's not the concern. We're not going to be upset about women being dragged through the mud. That's part of the course when you as an organization don't handle things in the proper manner because you're trying to shield and protect the woman from scrutiny. So we're not going to be upset like the president was. We're going to be upset at the fact that you are not handling things in the proper way. Matter of fact, we're men. We're not going to be upset about anything. We don't have to get emotional. We're going to address it with logic and reason because it's wrong. Not because women were embarrassed. That's not our primary concern. That's a concern. But we're more concerned about the overall handling of the situation. We're not going to turn it into a protect women at all costs thing. It's not about you.
The Celtics as an organization could have done more, and short of doing more ahead of this yesterday, they could have owned that responsibility in this press conference. I understand that there were legal parameters that they had to operate within for everybody involved, and I appreciate the fact that they brought in outside counsel and did a thorough organization. And I think that is something that...
First of all, how is it a thorough organization? This is just her, because she mentions the outside counsel. That's just an excuse, if you will, as if there's some legal ramifications they had to consider, and that's not why they're putting the name out there. That could very well be the case, but then if that's the case, why put any of it out? That seems to be Stephen A. Smith's contention. So you're asking us to speculate that that's the reason why they didn't mention the name. But then you're telling Stephen A. Smith not to speculate or to finger point because we don't know all the facts. Well, ma'am, you don't know that if it's a fact why they didn't mention her name as well. Again, the underlying agenda for not this woman, I'm not talking about her specifically. I'm talking about the image and archetype she wants to represent. America as a whole has cultivated this primary message to men. You are to worship women and don't say anything about them. Don't you open your mouth to them. Don't you hold them accountable, or you're going to be attacked. And I'm so grateful that men are beginning to say, as Stephen A. Smith is here shortly, we're not trying to hear that crap. You want to be equal? No problem. Then this kind of scrutiny, it comes with the turf. Get over it.
It was clearly necessary in this situation. But the fact that it was able to go on all day, the fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women.
There it is. I told you, brothers. I told you. There is the primary point of contention. Look at the rise in the tone of her voice. We are not here, Stephen A. And she's not talking to Stephen A. Smith. She's talking to, you're going to get used to this as we continue. I'm starting to enjoy myself. And I'm getting ready to bring this and wrap this up here. I'll have to come with a part 2 on this. We're not talking about Stephen A. Smith, and Miss Malika Andrews is not the one talking. These are images and archetypes who are set before you to train the minds of the masses. You have the liberal, so-called black feminist female speaking to the heterosexual so-called black male in power and saying, you are not here to do anything to so-called black women except revere us, pedestalize us, and never say anything negative about us. We are not here, so-called black man. We are not here, men in general, to scrutinize women. And she wants you to hear, she, not the person, she, the image and archetype. Now, my question to you, brothers, do you receive that message? Let's hear her again. We're going to wrap this segment up and come back with a part 2. I think it merits that.
Somebody else should have been suspected.
Listen to her now.
In this situation, but the fact that it was able to go on all day, the fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
Now, folks, I'm going to have to come back with a part 2 on this one, but I'm going to go ahead and close it down right here on part 1. I want you to hear me, and I'm having some some fun in certain cases here. Let me go ahead and get serious as I wrap this up. Brothers, there is a concerted effort to effeminize you. There is a concerted effort to mold and manipulate you in your thinking, in your mannerisms, in your masculinity. And what Miss Malika Andrews, not Malika Andrews, the individual, Malika Andrews, the image and archetype. What the macro level message is to you men is bow down and worship at the feet of the woman. You are not here to hold her accountable. You are not here to critique her. You are not here to make any demands of her whatsoever. And if you do, we're going to attack you with everything you have. And the woman is not alone. The powers that be, the spirit that governs this Babylonian society, are the ones who have propped her up to be the pawn that she has unfortunately become. We're going to come back with a part 2 on that. Until then, King Isom is at your service, ready to teach. Prince Isom is in your seat, ready to learn. Shalom.